What did you think? What did everybody
Love
think
it.
about the new intro?
Love the new intro.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Fabulous.
Yes, yes. I want to thank the Crip Walkers portal for doing that for me. Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
Beautiful
Love
job.
it. Absolutely love it. And there's a couple of scenes in there that's a sneak peek on what's to come as well. So
Ooh, dangling that carrot. How
I'm
unkind of
dangling that
you.
carrot.
You
How is
tease. What a tease.
I know. How is everybody today?
Oh, rainy and wet here,
I
cold.
know.
I wish it would make up its mind. Of course, it's spring in central New York. So, you could start off wearing a parka, end up wearing shorts, and then back to the parka. It's
Yeah,
just something
yeah.
we got to suck up. So
Yeah, it's
uh,
it was sunny, but now it's cloudy again. And the leaves are starting to turn over, which is an indication that there's going to be either a storm or rain coming. So
Here it comes.
be
Yeah.
prepared.
Well, you'll be getting what we're getting.
I know, absolutely, absolutely. Hey, Jamie, welcome. The chairman, welcome, welcome.
Yes,
We
welcome
also have
everybody.
Michael. Yeah, everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome. We have an
Glad they could
exciting
join us.
guest today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Very
Yes,
interesting.
yes, definitely. So, what's new, Laura? Anything?
Working on the new studio. Hoping to
Good.
have it done soon. It'll be so much nice to have more room and have everything set up the way I really want it set up, and all the things that everybody had sent me or whatever. I want to have it all displayed so we could see it, and it's nice to get all those little gifts from everybody. It's fun,
Yeah.
and just life, in general. That which I need a vacation from. Hopefully I can have that soon.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
what's
yeah.
what's going on with you, Miss
Uh,
Susan?
I've been busy. I've been working with the Crypt Walker. I've been working with him on the special project we have going on, and I'm actually going to be part of the voice behind it as well. So I have to kind of, work on that, record my voice, and send it out to him, and start getting everything ready to go. I'm very excited. But besides that, work and everyday life.
Yeah, just the fun stuff,
Yeah,
adulting and all that stuff. It's a
yeah,
trap. Don't grow up. That's what I'll tell them. Don't do it.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
Oh,
And the
geez.
new network is going well. We already
Great.
have
Yeah.
close to 200 likes and followers on Facebook. And we're just starting to stream through the YouTube channel. So I'm
Love it.
excited about
Yes.
that. And this network, anybody's as interested in streaming through it, feel free to just reach out to me. It's a drama free. Sorry about that. It's a drama free network.
Shut your YouTube down.
I know anybody and everybody's welcomed. And it could be any podcast from cooking to yoga, you name it. It's a drama free, safe community that we're
Yes,
trying to,
refreshing.
get everybody together. And it's going to be from all over the world that I want to connect to.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah,
looking
it's
very
great. Yeah,
forward
I
to
think
that.
it's doing good. I'm glad to be a part of it. It's
Yeah, thank you
the
so
drama
much.
free is awesome because you get so tired of it.
You
Every time
do.
you click on something, it's filled with drama and personal garbage, and that's not what we're here for. And
Yeah.
it's going, but that's what people thrive on. A lot of people thrive on it, and I'm glad that we're in a group where they don't, because I just don't
Yeah.
want
Yeah. And, um, I could only, when somebody requests to be on the channel, I'm the one that, well, myself and Nando is the only one that will approve it. So we'll definitely look at your podcast to make sure that it follows our guidelines, not to be strict or anything. I just don't want to bring on drama to the network.
right,
Because
right.
and then once we feel you're a right fit, we will add you to our streaming. So that's
Beautiful.
how it works.
There you go. So yeah, if you
Feel
guys are
like a
interested,
police
check it out.
officer, but
That's
hey,
all right. You've got to be, somebody's got to be the boss.
I know.
So we'll take care of the dirty work.
I know, definitely. So let's bring on our guests. So
Looking forward to it. Let's do it.
this is amazing. It's an amazing, and I'm happy for both Steve and Pam. They actually just put out a book not too long ago. It's called The Bug's Life Before the Mafia. Now they're going to tell you this story, but their great grandfather was actually considered his name the Bug, and he was actually involved with the Mafia. So we're going to go more into detail on how, they followed through with the research and how it all came together. So without further ado, let's bring on Steve and Pam. Welcome.
Welcome. How are you two doing this fine afternoon? I was going to say
fine
this
afternoon.
Evening. I'm used to going on at night.
Yeah, it's in the middle of the day.
Yeah, Steve is 3 hours behind us. So,
oh my goodness. He looks bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, though. He looks wide and awake.
It's noon there, right?
Yeah, right. True. Very true. But on a Saturday, you want to sleep in a little bit.
Yeah.
When does that happen?
It never happens to me because it's like even though they're not toddlers, they're kittens, they're still toddlers to me. So it's like 3 a.m. it starts even on weekends for me.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, that's too much. Too much.
Nothing like being a cat mom.
Yeah, I tell you. Yeah. I wouldn't want to go through the baby stage though again.
Oh no.
Well, thank you guys for having us today.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Excited. Yeah. So why don't we start with Steve? Put you into the
That's okay. I like it.
Steve, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, a little about myself. Well,
yes.
I've lived in San Diego since 75. I grew up in Indiana, and I joined the Navy, and the Navy brought me out to San Diego, and it was not hard to stay. I mean, San Diego weather just by itself.
Yeah.
Growing up in Indiana with not only the snow, but the cold and just all the things you put up with in the environment. And I'm into motorcycles, so, I'm not likely rained out. I can go for a ride almost any day of the year. So in Indiana, when it's 40 degrees, people take their jackets off. In San Diego, when it's 40 degrees, they put them on.
Right. Right.
Nice. What kind of a motorcycle do you have?
I've had several over the years, but right now I have a 2014 Fat Boy.
Sweet. That is awesome. I had a bad experience on a motorcycle, and I haven't been on one ever since. Now everybody tells me, you're not supposed to wear shorts. And of course I wore shorts, and I burned myself right on the pipe. Yeah. I was fierce.
My biggest pet peeve is I see people on these crotch rockets wearing a full face helmet with tank top, shorts, and flip-flops.
Yep. Yeah, they do that here.
That's crazy. That is insane. Let's see. We just want to take a quick sec. Let's see who else came in. Jamie, welcome. Joe, welcome. Pomp and Mark.
Thanks too.
Welcome, everybody.
Guys.
Welcome. Yeah.
Yeah, my husband saw two girls on a motorcycle, one of the crotch rockets. No helmets, just
that's crazy.
Speeding, and they're laughing. I go, yeah, they will be funny when they dump it. It's yeah.
Well, I believe New Hampshire still doesn't have a helmet law. I don't know if a lot of places, still don't have one, but Massachusetts does.
Yeah, New York has a helmet law, and they were just going down without a care in the world.
Yeah. That's insane. Pam.
Susan.
Tell us a little about, I already know Pam from a book, but tell us, so everybody knows about you. Tell us a little bit something about you.
Well, let me see if I can think of something you don't know, but I doubt it.
I doubt it.
Well, let's see. I'm from Indiana. I'm still in Indiana. Not in my hometown though. So I've been married 46 years.
Holy
3 kids, 13 grandkids.
wow.
And so
Crazy.
I think, and also I'm 7 of 8 kids. So there's 8 kids in our family. So, with 4 brothers and 3 sisters. So, growing up with the big family is probably my most cherished memory.
Wonderful.
Holidays and football games lasted a week, not one day.
Right. That's
You know?
wonderful.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So let's go dive right in right now. So
Okay.
let's go a little bit back. So when I read the book, I was all in awe because I knew nothing about this because we talk regularly, Pam.
Yeah.
And I had no idea about that your great grandfather was part of the Mafia.
Grandfather. It's a grandfather, not great.
Okay.
It's
your
our dad's
grandfather.
dad. Yeah.
So I believe your dad started doing research, correct?
Yeah. He done research all of his life, actually. And he just didn't have the resources that we have. He had a phone book, a telephone, and a library where you had to sit and run through the screen of the
Microfilms.
newspaper. Yeah.
Yeah.
Microfilms.
Remember that?
So he didn't have a whole lot, and what he did have, he wrote letters to people. He did find people in Oregon and they did write back. But I think his research that him and Steve did, well, it was the book that they found. I think really was one of the most important things to Dad was the Workman history book.
So you have to remember his experience started when he was 6 years old. He heard his parents having a conversation, and the conversation was his dad was leaving and not coming back. And Pam, he told you about this conversation.
Yeah, he told me this story. Yeah. So he told me, that he just overheard them talking and, it wasn't an argument or anything like that. It was a discussion. And his dad was just saying, I'm not going to be able to come back. And of course, our dad being the oldest, it really upset him, that his dad was leaving, didn't understand it. And so now I believe that our grandmother knew what he was involved in, possibly. But, you can only speculate because this is 100 years, over 100 years now. So,
wow.
And so when our dad passed away in 98, then I kind of picked up. And, for many years, while Dad was doing research, I was comparing pictures, but not knowing until many years later that I was comparing the wrong pictures. And I was saying, there's no way that could be him. Well, because it wasn't him, so not knowing who the picture was and getting clarification of who was in the picture really set the tone for everything on this book.
And so to give a little bit more background to the story, so Charles Workman was our grandfather. And there's been lots of books written about Murder, Inc., about the Mafia. There's been movies made, but no one has told the story about his life before the Mafia. So essentially, he was born in Cherubusco in 1898, and this is all information that from the research that our dad and Pam has done. Excuse me. So his first wife, they were married and they had one son. They got divorced and he took the son with him to his second marriage, who was our grandmother. And then they had 4 kids. So now there was 5 kids in the household. And so as best we can tell, 1929 is when he left the family. Our dad was about 6, and actually the half brother didn't join the family until after that, from what we can tell. So he ends up in New York, and he gives a different birthday, making himself 10 years younger. And he uses his second wife's, our grandmother's, actual month and date for his birthday. What a coincidence is that? But back then, you could take on a new identity, and there was no real verification in place. So you think about the 20s and even early 30s, you were whoever you said you were, and you were born whenever you said you were born. You didn't really have any situations where you needed concrete evidence or to prove that.
And so a lot of times when you're researching and you see a birth date and it says about, that's why.
Right.
And so in our dad's research, one of his cousins sent him some pages out of this hardbound book called The Workman Family History. Well, in 85, when our dad was here in San Diego with me, we found the book in the San Diego library. It's a hardbound book on the Workman family history.
Wow.
And what I was able to do is I contacted the publisher, and they said, yeah, it was. So the research was done in the 20s and 30s. The book was published in the early 60s.
64.
64, 62, 62. And so the publisher said they had, this was 85 now, they had 2 copies. So I bought both copies. So what this book shows, mostly it's done through census data. And so this book traces our family history back to the 1600s.
Wow.
The way they did that, once they went back to England and Scotland, they started looking at church records, baptisms, births, deaths, things like that. So it's all tied together. So Charlie and his parents are listed in here. Our dad and his siblings are listed in here. So this was the foundation for our dad's research to start that. So like I said, he watched his dad drive away, and he spent the rest of his life trying to find him.
Right.
Wow. Wow. That must have been a lot, for a 6-year-old to go through.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. So, so once Charlie left, where did he go? Like, what was the history behind that?
As far as we can tell, he went to New York. But we also believe that it's possible that he was in Chicago before he went to New York because of the stories that our dad had told as he was, a child. Like they would see a black car down the road, and when that car appeared, there would be money in the mailbox.
Find an envelope in the mailbox with money in it. Yeah.
And
well,
so, and our
yeah.
grandmother would make the kids come in the house when she found out that that car was out there. So I think that in order for him to be in that location, he would have to be somewhere close. New York would be too far away. So that's why I think he started out in Chicago. And then right around the time that Al Capone would have been getting in trouble for tax evasion in 31, maybe even before, he goes to New York.
So we can't find any arrest records or any other historical documents that shows he was in Chicago. But what comes through is a lot of family stories. And some stories we didn't know until just recently, talking to our cousins. But, excuse me, some of the other family stories is through Pam's research. This first wife that I talked about, when they got divorced before he married our grandmother, this woman remarried a couple times and stayed in the area. And descendants of that woman, Pam has contacted them and met with them. And I was back in Indiana recently, and I met with some of them.
Wow.
Really interesting to hear their family stories. Some we haven't heard. Some are for the same event that we have heard, but with a different way to get there with the same outcome.
Yeah. And so that's why, we're trying to stress that how important family stories are to you. They're just as important to you as they are to us. And that's how, that's what you go by, right? I mean, if you don't have documents or you don't have pictures, that's what you go by. Hey, Uncle Charlie, whatever. And so, and that is what created this book, is family stories.
Yeah, you see Mafia documentaries and movies all the time, but I'm just curious to see what his life was like, very curious.
Yeah, but we can only speculate what, without, I can only speculate. That was just my assumption that I think he had to be closer in order to be in that black car down the road watching his kids. I think that he left to protect the family. I think that he ends up in Chicago because his first marriage, his father-in-law told him about going to Chicago, getting a job. So stories like that is what we get from the extended family of his first wife. And without us knowing that, we would not suspect him being in Chicago unless you think about the area where our grandmother lived. How could he get there that quickly, or could he afford to, go back and forth?
So we do know an awful lot about his life after he left Indiana. And one of the documents that told us so much about his life is our dad was aware of what he became, that he was a hitman for the Mafia. His nickname was Charlie the Bug. The most famous hit was on Dutch Schultz. And the story behind that, there was a prosecutor, Thomas Dewey, that was going to go after organized crime in New York. And he started putting a lot of pressure on Dutch Schultz. Dutch Schultz went to the commission of the Mafia, all the leaders, and said, hey, we need to take out this prosecutor, because he's not just arresting our brothers and our members, he's sending them to the electric chair. And so we need to take him out. And so the commission said, Dutch, we don't mess with law enforcement and we don't mess with government. It would bring too much attention on our operation. We can't afford that to happen. And so Dutch was pretty upset with the whole thing and said, well, if you don't do it, then I will. And Dutch had actually staked out the prosecutor, Thomas Dewey. He knew where he was going to do the hit. He was probably within a day or two of doing it when the commission said, we need to take out Dutch Schultz.
Wow.
So they contracted with Charlie the Bug. He was sent and took out Dutch Schultz. And so that was, I think, in 35. And so in 38, an investigation started with the FBI for a totally different reason, looking at these rackets in New York City that were influencing the fur trade. Well, so our dad was aware that his dad's involvement and what he was known for. And so in November of 97, he wrote a letter to the FBI and said, I'd like to see the file on my father, give him all this information. Well, our dad passed away 2 months later in January of 98.
And this is the
Later in the year, what
Wow.
Pam's opened up is the FBI file. It starts in 38 and goes, actually, Charlie went to prison in 41, but it continues up until about 44, just adding things to it with all of his associates. So his life is very well documented in this FBI file.
Wow.
We know a lot about him after he left.
right.
Wow. Wow. We're going to take a minute. One of our viewers has a question, which I'm going to read. Knowing you had links with the Mafia, did it restrict your research in case you uncovered something you shouldn't or wouldn't want to?
Well, it was kind of remote. It was something like Pam said, happened close to 100 years ago. He never really came back to face his family or talk to his family after he left. But we found out he kept an eye on the family with some other people. So we never, Pam, you can give your response, but it was never really a question of a concern.
Yeah, a lot of people, have even said to me, well, aren't you afraid? No, I'm not afraid. This was 100 years ago. Murder Inc. ended when Charlie went to prison. So, some people probably would be afraid, but I'm not afraid of it at all. Some people are, but I'm not.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. How long did it take for both of you to do the research?
Well, I've been researching over 25 years, but more heavily in the last 4 or 5. So.
Wow. Wow. And what made you, both of you, decide to make this book?
Well, actually, I wanted to publish it, and Steve said, well, it's not that big of a book, and it's really going to be a pamphlet for family members. Well, we did a podcast with All Access Network, and that's when he realized that people were interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we did publish it. He was shocked to see the interest that was in it, I think. So, all along I wanted to. So,
So all the research contained a lot of genealogy, a lot of family directly related things. But But then the more we talk to our cousins and other people, the more family stories that we got out of it, and especially talking to the other family of his first wife, her descendants. Everyone was very knowledgeable. It wasn't a secret, the family knew all of these things. And so it just kind of, without setting out to do that, it just kind of came together. And the more stories that we got, the more of a book it became. And actually, we postponed the publishing for about a week because we were getting new stories we hadn't heard of that were very relative. And so we were able to put those together, excuse me, and actually put together a timeline in this story. Excuse me.
I should imagine you had people interested, the Mafia, and people into local history as well as family members who would buy it. Yeah, that's our hope. But also our hope is, mine would be for even further extended family from New York to reach out. I hope that they see it. Because there was a book written, and it was by Charlie's son from New York, because Charlie got married in New York, had a son, separate from the 5 children in Indiana. And so, my hope is that I've always wanted to do a DNA, and without one of them, the DNA wouldn't show anything. But
I think our family stories are so strong, it's hard to deny that relationship. And it's from so many different sources. And like our oldest brother, when he read the book, his comment was, I never heard any of these stories.
Wow.
But yet some of our cousins' kids told us extensive stories that our dad told them that we were never told.
Right.
So, there's it's just interesting, the things you find out when you ask.
Yeah.
Because you
And
never
to me,
had that experience,
yeah.
doesn't mean it wasn't there.
And to me, my question would be how he even, what was his reasoning in getting interested with the Mafia? Like, did somebody approach him and gave him a great deal? Or it'll be interesting to find out, like, why he went to that side,
Well, because he's not here, there's never a way to find that. But like I said, we can only speculate.
Yeah.
And if he was, he wouldn't tell you.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm assuming it was good money as well, so.
I'm sure,
Yeah, and so we can't really tell when he initially got involved with the Mafia, what his motivation was. But if you think about, back in back in the late 20s, early 30s, it was pretty hard economic times.
Right.
And so that was all going to be taken care of. I see in the comments, people are asking, where can I get a copy? So if you go to Amazon and you open the search bar, you don't need an Amazon account. Open the search bar. There's a QR code that Pam has. In the search bar, you can type in Charlie the Bug, or you can type in Pam's name or my name, and the book will come up.
Yes.
So
I have that scan code on there as well.
Okay.
So, yeah.
It's available in audio, it's available in Kindle, and it's available in paperback.
Yeah. Yep, I do have it in the description of this podcast, and
Okay. Thank you.
I did add the scan code on the thumbnail. So if you
Okay.
go to the thumbnail and just scan it with your camera, it would bring you to the page as well.
Okay.
So that is
Wonderful.
interesting. It's interesting. The other question I have, and again, Charlie is not here to answer those questions, but the other question I have is, why did he even get remarried? Because I thought being in the mafia, you had to lead a secret life and not have any attachments.
Well, so our theory is a couple things. He went to New York. He had to present him. He didn't have to, but he decided to present himself 10 years younger than what he was. He also, because there was two organizations in the mafia. One of them was you had to be from Sicily to be of any ranking level, and the other part of the mafia, you had to be Jewish. So he came from a Christian family. That's how we met. His first wife was at a Christian church picnic. Again, a story we got from that family. So when he went to New York, guess what? He's Jewish.
Oh.
And
I wonder why those why were those restrictions only like a certain
Well,
there's a level of trust and a level of so you can think about it like to be in management of those organizations. The one organization, you had to be from Sicily, so you had to be Italian in the first place.
yeah.
The other one was you had to be the other organization, you had to be Jewish. And although Charlie was never at the table, so to speak, as a boss or as a leader, but he was so very well respected and included in so many things.
So Pomp has a question. I may have missed you say it. What was his role in the mafia?
So if you've heard of Murder Inc., Charlie the Bug Workman was one of the most prolific hitmen. And so the way the two organizations work that I described, if the Italian mafia wanted to take somebody out, they would hire the hitmen, the enforcers from the Jewish mafia. And all they would tell them is, here's the guy's name and maybe an address or where he frequents. And so the Jewish mafia was very good at enforcing. They might rough somebody up, they might assassinate them, but if they were caught, they had no information on why the guy was taken out. They
Or
couldn't. Or who ordered it.
Mhm.
It was an insulation thing for the Italian mafia.
Yeah.
So his role was to be part of Murder Incorporated, and there were many other ones in there, but he's the most well known because of the hit on Dutch Schultz.
So he wasn't just a hitman; he's also an inside hitman, and so think of it that way. That's how I look at it, and because he never talked about anything, even in prison or even after he got out of prison, the respect, that's where it comes from, because he never talked. So even when he got out, he never talked.
In his son's book, his son that was born in New York, that had no knowledge of his previous life, of his dad's previous life, became a PGA golfer. And he wrote a book about Murder Incorporated meets the PGA. And so in that book, he talks about when his dad got out of prison, and he said, I just have to ask, did you really do what they say you did? Did you kill Dutch Schultz? And his dad's reply was, I haven't talked about this for 30 years. What makes you think I'm going to talk to you? So he maintained the silence. I
Right.
noticed in the comments, some people are asking about Charlie's hit count, and all of that. Nobody's going to know for sure. You might know how many people were assassinated by the mafia, but nobody's going to know the numbers for sure for each hitman.
Right.
There were rumors of more than 20, but again, they don't talk.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so there's no way to verify any other than the hit on Dutch Schultz. And very
Yes.
family
Very
oriented.
family
Yeah,
oriented. So
Mhm.
they
this is
looked out
why.
for the family.
Yes. So when Charlie goes to prison, the mafia continues to take care of his wife and child in New York the entire time that he's in prison for 23 years. Every week, his wife got an envelope of money. And if it
Wow.
wasn't the right amount, when she went and seen Charlie for a visit once a week, she would tell him and it would change. So, you know, they totally took care of them the whole time he was in there. His son was 29 by the time he got out. His son was 6 when he went in. So they totally took care of the family. They took the son to events, attended his school things, all of those things. But they were all uncles to him.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and
It's
Charlie
amazing.
dies in 79, and
Mhm.
his wife from New York dies in 84.
Yeah. Now he was also a card salesman, correct?
He
Well,
was involved in a, well, actually, if you go back to his birth town, Cherubusco, Indiana, so that's a pretty deep answer to your question. Yes, is the answer, but there was recently a book published about that city, the first 100 years of Cherubusco, and it talks about. It starts with the Indians. It starts in 1850 and goes to 1950.
Mm-hmm.
And in that book is a picture of Charlie as a mechanic working at a local garage. When he went to New York, when the FBI first started investigating him, they said, "So how do you explain that you have a brand new 39 brand new car and you have a maid and the money you make isn't enough to pay for all that?" And he just looked at him. He didn't answer it. But he said he was involved in a car lot called Montrose Motors. I think it was in Jersey.
yeah.
And he said, "That's how I got the car. I bought it from the car lot." Well, the car lot turned out it was really a front for a lot of other activities, um, things that were going on. So he was involved in car lots. Yes.
So this is the book, The First 100 Years of Cherubusco. And actually, it was just published recently. And Steve and I actually got to talk to this author when he was here in Indiana for a couple
Wow.
of weeks. And so, when we find something, we just dive right in. There's no way that we were going to let this book slide without, this Cherubusco book, without talking to this author, because he had so much detail about the family and where they lived and about Charlie.
And so his resources was census records for the most part. He got a lot from census.
Yeah.
And
So
so
that was really interesting.
we've learned a couple things in our research and putting this together. One of them is that family stories are what you know to be true at the time. If you have family stories about one of your uncles that was a gambler, that's what you knew to be true at the time. You might find out later on, he had other issues or whatever it was, but your family story is still true to you until you find other evidence. And that's been our experience,
Yeah.
especially meeting with this other family. And the other thing is, census records are not always accurate.
Right.
There's somebody at the door, like the mailman, basically, with a clipboard saying, okay, tell me everyone that lives here, tell me their occupation, how old are they, what's their race, all these things that they ask in the 20s and 30s. And even the census admits, sometimes we get it wrong.
Yeah. And so when you're doing research, you have to be able to recognize those little things that were mistakes. Even ancestry, if somebody has entered information, left out an initial, or
entered it wrong.
accidentally used a wrong date, pushed the wrong button, it screws everything up.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a lot of people that do family history and they don't put in the correct history on purpose.
Yeah.
So that also throws you off.
Yeah.
I've been through all of that. Yeah. So it's,
So some use like a middle initial and some use a middle name and some do not at all. So, you have to be able to match that with date of birth and things like that. Baptismal records, parents' names, where they were born and things like that.
Oh, wow. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I read in the book that if it was his oldest son actually went to an address which he thought his father was at and knocked on the door.
It wasn't his oldest son. It was actually his youngest son that was only a couple months old when he left. And so, again, this is one of the stories that our cousin told us about his dad. So our dad's brother. We don't know where he got the address, where he got the information, but when our uncle turned 18, he took himself to Chicago and he had an address and knocked on the door and said, I'm here to see Charlie Workman. I'm his son. And the person answering the door said, just a minute. When they came back, they told him, you need to leave. And it was at one of those typical buildings in Chicago and New York where they have like the steps going up to the building, right?
So brownstone,
if you can picture king and queens, or something.
Yeah.
He said when he turned around, again, the family story goes, when he turned around, there were two men on each side of the steps down on the sidewalk and a taxi with the door open in the street. You need to leave. And
so there was no yes or no or anything, just you need to leave.
Yeah. And that was, and looking at it, see, they didn't know what we know now because we can stretch out all this information we have. That was actually at a time when Charlie was in jail, in prison.
Right.
And
so Charlie was already in prison when this story occurred. So this would have been the mafia protecting the family.
Just said, nope, I don't know what you want. I don't know who you're talking about. But it's a little suspicious that they would react so strongly.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
And so those of you that are
Yeah.
looking to purchase the book, it's just under $10 on Amazon. So after you purchase it and read it,
Mhm.
please go back to Amazon and leave us a review.
Yes.
Yeah. Amazon is really important for reviews. So
Yes. Yes, definitely. So you guys were just at a Paracon, I believe, correct? How was that?
I think
can
there's
we skip
probably
that question?
we're looking forward to a better experience in the future.
Yeah. That's a good answer. Yeah.
That's the safe answer.
You need to leave.
There you go. Right.
Yeah,
Oh man.
that's
Oh
a good
man.
one.
So I'm assuming you guys are just going to continue on the research and hopefully publish another book.
Well, it's funny you'd say that because the way we put this together is Pam and I would have a video chat almost every day, send files back and forth. Once we decided to put it into a book form, we'd say, okay, let's expand on this part. We can take that part out. And so we finally got to a point where we felt comfortable to publish it, but we've never stopped going back and forth and adding to the story. And so we're thinking maybe next year we may add a second edition
Okay.
to the book, because we're still finding stories that we've never heard before.
Yeah.
Wow.
And especially when I spent a couple weeks in Indiana, just from all kinds of sources, things where we thought the story ended because I didn't remember what happened next.
Mm-hmm.
Our brother filled us in and said, I'll tell you what happened. You know, here's the rest of that story.
Right.
So it's just things like that. And a lot of people have said their reviews say, you know, it just left us wanting more. We wanted to know more
Yes.
about
Yes.
Yeah.
the details and different stories. And so we think over the next year, we'll be able to provide that.
Yeah.
I
And
think more
have
the people that see this book, they're gonna
Yeah, I was just
you're
going
gonna
to say
connect
that.
with people saying that,
Yeah.
oh, okay, wait a minute, I know something about this.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you'll end up getting more information as the book gets out there.
And
Yeah.
that's
And
what we
that's
hope
what
it
I'm
does.
hoping for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I would really like to get, you know, the family from New York to reach out and
Mhm.
say, hey, we never knew this, or we might have
Right.
known it, or something, you know, because I think that would just be the most interesting thing. Now, I do want to say that a couple of years ago, doing some research, Charlie's son from New York, that was a famous PGA golfer, I actually talked to his second wife on the phone.
Wow.
And I was just amazed, you know. But it didn't work out in my favor. But that's okay because the bug was put out there. And maybe, you know, one of the grandkids or somebody will reach out because of it,
Mhm.
Right.
you know. So,
Yeah, definitely. And hopefully, you know, a lot of people, like Laura said, you know, they'll see the book out and they'll want to make a connection. Definitely.
yeah.
Definitely.
And so one thing we haven't talked about, I want to mention our our connection. I guess you can call it paranormal, but our connection to Michael and Marty Perry.
Yeah.
They are psychic mediums, if you don't know.
Mhm.
So Michael is in direct contact with people that have passed, and his wife Marty actually draws sketches of people that she sees that are around during the reading. So I had a reading with them, with our older sister and my wife, and showed them the book that Charlie's son wrote and asked my dad some questions. Really didn't get much information, but Marty drew a picture of someone we really didn't recognize. We weren't sure who it was. So was this Chuck, Charlie's son, or was it Charlie? And
Mhm.
at that Paracon you mentioned we went to in Tennessee recently, they were both there. And
Oh,
they looked at that picture again separately. They weren't together. Both came over separately and looked at that picture and they both said, I'm pretty sure that's Charlie.
Charlie. Yep.
Charlie the Buck.
Wow.
So Michael and Marty also wrote the foreword to our book.
Yeah.
As you can see in the poster behind Pam. It's on
Yep.
the cover.
And Lee Triana Brown from All Access Network created our cover. We absolutely love the cover. Thank
It's
you.
a great cover.
Yes, thank you, Lee. And our publisher, Vicki Peplow, is phenomenal. We couldn't ask for anything better. She not only is the publisher for our book, but she educates us as we go. So
Mhm.
You can tell that she really cares about what she does. So
Yeah, yeah. And it's a lot of people don't realize how much work is involved in publishing a book, like doing the research, make sure you have everything correct.
yeah,
Then find a publisher, get it out. But you guys are constantly like promoting and going to events. I know you're been appearing to not only on here, but other podcasts just to get your book out. So it's a lot of work.
Yeah. And it's up to us to push it,
Yeah.
so that's what we're here to do,
Yeah.
is to push this book out.
Absolutely. So is there any future events that you are both going to?
Well, Steve's in California, so we probably won't go together. But I'm hoping to go to the next one in July.
Okay.
At the Broadhead Manor.
In Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to go there. But we'll see. I mean, the first Paracon didn't leave a very good taste in my mouth. So.
Oh boy.
Well, the other thing, and I guess it's full disclosure, Pam and I aren't going to make any money on this book.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's costing us both money.
Yeah.
But it turns out it's such a good product, and we've gotten such good feedback on it. We're going to continue to promote it.
And we're not in it for the money. Yeah, we're not in it for the money. This is our family story, and we are putting it out there. And if anyone has questions, I'm very confident that we can answer any of them.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to put in the chat.
Yeah, get them out there while you can.
Get them out there.
Bill put a Q, but I don't know if there's a typo.
Question.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
But I will say that even, can you elaborate on who the Como cons?
Why the Como cons didn't
work out?
The Comic-Cons, I think is why he's not work out. He's laughing. Sorry. Yeah, bad typing day for Bill.
Bad.
Well, to be honest, it came down to not knowing the number of attendees until actually the night before, because we were trying to figure out, should we bring 2 books? Should we bring 22 books? Right. and it just was not very well attended.
Mm.
And it just would have been nice to know up front, before the hotel was paid for and my flight was paid for, all of those things. But you know what? We decided to make we just
made
made it
fun
a
of it.
positive experience anyhow, in spite of all of that.
Yeah.
And just
So
kind of
no
moved
matter
on.
what, it was still positive. And not only that, but it kind of gave us some time together too, with our family. And because it's hard to get Steve from California and then everybody be able to see him. So we had a gathering, and, because he doesn't want to leave anyone out, of course, but I think it also was a good bonding thing for the two of us, even though we talk every day. And after it was published, when I didn't get a phone call, I called him and said, "You didn't call me today." Well, the book's published. He didn't need to call me. I didn't like that.
Yeah, see, don't do that again, Steve.
I know.
So that's where, the new stuff is coming out. So, but I will say that I do believe Steve has found his niche. He's a great writer.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. So where can people go with updates? You mentioned before where they could find the book. Is there any other social media places or links that they could get updated on?
Other than our personal Facebook page, we put it on there, but other than that, we don't really have anywhere to put it. So,
okay.
Well, the other learning experience this has provided is how hard it is to do a simple book signing, because
yes,
bookstores, they want to be able to, they're willing to buy your book, whatever quantity they want, but they want to be able to have a guarantee that they can return them if they're not sold. They want that guarantee up front. And the thing is, if you want those books that they're going to return, then it costs you money.
That's his phone tone ring.
I was going to say, you can't be on your motorcycle.
So, Barnes and Noble, they won't, the requirements to have a book signing at Barnes and Noble, one of the first line items, it can't be published on Amazon.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh man,
and a lot
that's
of bookstores
crazy.
are like that. So
yeah,
it's very difficult. So these podcasts are one of our only ways to
get
the word out.
And we've talked about. Yes, he does. And we've talked about maybe creating our own podcast.
Yes.
But, I don't have a platform other than Facebook. And so that's the other thing we're looking at.
I think it's an awesome idea because then it'll get the word out even more.
Yeah.
So, people could just stumble across, oh, hey, wait a minute, I know that name or I know what they're talking about. And then they'll end up in your chat or, contacting you to be on the program. So,
yeah. And something that we may be able to bring them up on screen and let them ask a question or something. Or maybe they know some history. And so that's why I had contacted you, Susan, about that. So we're thinking about that. But I think that it would probably be more than an hour. I'm thinking like an hour and a half or 2 hour podcast because I want people to read the book and then come to the podcast and see what the questions are.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Like we talked about before, I'm not sure if you just go through Facebook Live. I'm
Yeah.
not sure how long you could stay on for.
Yeah.
I know definitely you won't be able to bring in people because you
No.
definitely need a streaming platform for
Yeah. So you
that.
need a platform.
Yeah,
I mean, something that we can share to Facebook, to
Yep.
our Facebook pages. So, you know, it's something that I would like to do and have people like Marty and Michael on and talk to them about their abilities and how this works in this kind of way. So, you know, just different things. But, and the people that's been involved with our stories.
yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. I think that would be something people would be interested in.
Oh yeah.
You know, and even if it was new authors, or even if it was an author out there that had ideas for us, you know, or anything to do with authors and things like that.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I think that's an amazing idea. I generally do. And if you need any help, let me know.
I definitely will.
Yeah,
You are
definitely.
my first
Definitely.
pick, girl.
Does anybody else have any questions in the chat? Laura, do you have any other questions?
No, I've just been enjoying the story.
Yes. It's a great story.
And I mean, I feel what you guys have gone through, because I've helped my mother-in-law do family history, and the hours upon hours at the library, and like you said, phone calls and letters, and it's very, very hard work. And so for you guys to collect what you did and put it in a book is going to make it easier for the next generation who are going to be looking up the family history.
Right.
So, you know, so you're helping out a great deal, and hopefully that will also, like I said, if we get the book out there for you, you guys get a podcast going, then people will start saying, oh, wait a minute, I do know something about this. It's going to give you more people to link up to. So
and
it's definitely
I've also
a
thought
bonus.
about a new history book.
Yes.
You know,
because you're going to find out, I've noticed now doing like the family history and all of that, there are a lot of people that put down the wrong information, and they do it on purpose.
Yes.
And what you're researching is going to be a lot of false information. I'm sure you've hit a lot of brick walls.
A lot of brick walls, but there's also, because of the timing, like the 20 and 30s, they didn't have IDs. They didn't have, you know, birth certificates or things like that to make it difficult to research over 100 years. So to be able to connect to people and connect things that way with what they have and what we have matching, I mean, that's really what we have. We have to go with our resources and what's available.
Awesome. Church records actually are where the best way is to go.
Yeah, and
they documented everything.
Yeah, because I will say that genealogy has been a huge part of this, and the Fort Wayne Library has the largest genealogy program in the United States, and they have been a great help. And I still call them. So, you know, just knowing that resource is there, and me and Steve got to go to that library, you know, it's like putting a name with a face.
Yeah, it's great.
And I had to go there. So, so we went there, and, you know, but the research, I mean, the other thing you got to remember is how many people have the same name.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So how many people are in the same area and born around the same time of the birth that they're giving?
Yeah. See, that's the thing. Back then, they named everybody was the same.
Yeah,
you know, junior, senior. Yeah. Oh God, it's awful.
Yeah, because let me tell you, I can't tell you how many Charlie Workmans are in New York. I cannot imagine. There's so many out there. I'm like, I'm only going to start with the first two because it is so crazy. Yeah. But when you find someone that's got the same name. You have to find some kind of record that deciphers that person from your person. Like I found one, his middle initial was different. But when he was arrested, there was no middle initial. So you have to verify this is the same person,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
you know, as you're following this trail. And you have to verify that it's not your person. Okay, so this person had a different set of siblings, different parents. So
Yep.
you have to really decipher those things. And there's so many people with the same name and, believe it or not, the same year of birth.
Yeah, it's something. Another great source was back in the day, and I know a lot of people don't do this anymore. Is a lot of times grandmas and moms and all that would write down births and wedding dates and all that stuff in their Bibles.
Yes.
Right.
And
Family
they don't
Bibles
do
are
that
good
anymore. So
Yeah, and
if you
that's
could get
what
your hands
Steve
on
was
those.
talking about, the history book that goes back to, I think goes back to even 1400s maybe. But that's what they used was the Bible. It was baptismal records and things like that.
All written down.
Because they didn't have birth certificates, social security cards, those kind of things. Also, the other thing is arrest records.
Yep.
What do you think they had in 1920s and 30s?
It
Not
wasn't
a
like
lot.
today.
Yeah.
No, not a lot.
So with the fingerprint just came out. What year was the fingerprint, Steve? 1903?
Yeah, 1902.
1903. Fingerprint comes out. So, you know, when something's new, it's not always working very well. Even a new car can break. So if they're doing a fingerprint and it's anywhere smeared, it's no good.
Mm-hmm.
If there's too much ink, if there's not enough ink, it's got to be done just right. I don't know if you guys have ever worked with fingerprints before, but I have. So if they're not perfect, it doesn't work even today.
Right.
So think about this in the 1920s and 30s. Here comes fingerprints at 1903. So before that, they would describe the person by body measurements. How long was his arm?
Yeah.
You know, things like that. So then when the fingerprint came along, the fingerprint went with those measurements. Well, something in the measurements wasn't right, or the fingerprint was not verifiable. So you can't put those two together.
Right.
So, I mean, all of these little bitty things that you never even thought about when you started, you know, because I was like, well, heck, I didn't know they didn't have fingerprint or social security cards or, you know.
Right. Yeah,
It's
no, you don't
crazy.
think about it. Yep.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Forget about DNA. I mean, that probably didn't even exist either.
Yes, exactly.
You know?
Yeah. And, you know, that in itself is hard to get. So, you know, you have to be really vigilant about what you're putting together, you know, and
it's a lot of hours.
Yeah. And, you know, when you get people with the same names and stuff, it's crazy. Crazy. So.
Oh.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So,
I'm just looking to see if there's any more questions.
yeah, that's what I'm looking at too. No other questions, guys? I think everybody was just enjoying the story just as much as us.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, we could talk for hours, you know what I mean?
I know. It's yeah. So, well, if nobody else has any questions, thank you, Steve and Pam, for coming on.
Thank you for having us. And thanks for everybody who stopped in and said hello and gave us questions. Go to Amazon, check us out.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And again, the scan code that Pam showed is actually on the thumbnail. So you could just use your camera and scan it and it'll bring you right to Amazon. And definitely,
check it
definitely you
out.
need to leave a review.
Yes.
Definitely.
Thank you, Jamie. Jamie said, I can't think as so intrigued by the conversation. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Interesting. Yeah. Thank
It
you
is.
It's
everybody
a
for
very
joining.
interesting story. And
Yeah.
there's,
Thank you very
and,
much.
you know, like I have said in the book, are we done? We don't know. We'll have to see.
Right.
No, I hope
I
not.
don't. No, I'm sure it's going to continue. I'm sure we'll
Yeah,
see
definitely.
something
Definitely.
new.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you both very much. And we're going to put you backstage, and Laura and I is going to wrap up the show.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. See you in a
Bye,
bit. Thanks.
everyone.
Interesting, huh?
Yes, very interesting.
Yes.
You know, it's funny when everybody says, "Oh, well, we're related to so and so," and they were in the mob. You're like, yeah, but doing family research is hard to
It
begin with.
is. Like,
And then when
because,
you've got something like that, what they're doing, it's even
yeah,
harder because it's all a lie.
yeah. Because Pam
You
and I,
know,
we talk regularly, and I tell you, she was so involved in this, and Steve, of course, was as well, but it takes a lot of your time.
yeah, it does. Like I said, I've done it with my mother-in-law years ago, and we
Yep.
didn't have computers back then. And so you got to go through all that microfilm and, like I said, the census and baptismal records. And it is the research upon hours. I mean, I've got boxes of that stuff because after my mother-in-law passed, I got stuck with all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's all in the attic, boxes of stuff that was
Yep.
all handwritten.
Yeah.
You used to sit for hours and write all this stuff down. But here you're getting, that's what I'm saying, when determining between fact and fiction, they're
Yeah.
dealing with a profession that was all done under a curtain of secrecy. So
Yeah.
it's even more hard for them to find out the truth because, the mob, they're not going to say anything. They say nothing.
Yeah.
It's a secret world and it's really difficult. So I commend them on finding out what they did find out, and hopefully we can see some more great stuff coming our way from them. And
Yeah.
it's a great story.
I know. And I didn't have a chance to say hello to the guests that popped in later. I know Jimmy popped in, Leanne. Thank you for
Yes.
coming.
Thank you, everybody.
And I'm so sorry. Bill, thank you. And if anybody else popped in that I missed, I'm so sorry. But we were kind of like just wrapped up with Steve
In
and
the
Pam and their
zone,
story.
right? We were in the
It's
zone.
crazy. It's crazy. So Laura, you have a show with Carla tomorrow.
Going back into the chick chat. We're gonna change it up a bit, trying to keep things fresh. And hopefully now she's back into the schedule. So it'll be, every other week on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And then of course I've got a guest on Wednesday.
Yes.
It's Mark from Haunted Truth. He's a great guest.
Really
great interview. He's so fun.
Yeah. I know we have in 2 weeks, we have Rick he does the tours for the Lizzie Borden house.
Nice.
And what's interesting is he was my very first guest when I started this. So it's great to have him back and see what else happened.
Nice.
Yeah.
How fun.
Yeah.
Yes, Wayne, tomorrow, chick chat tomorrow with Miss Carla.
Yes. So everybody.
Maybe we get, have some fun, stir up some trouble. Who knows? You don't know when the camera starts rolling, whatever comes out, comes out.
Exactly.
So hopefully everybody will join us.
Yeah. And everybody have a great afternoon and a great night.
Yes.
And
enjoy the rest of your weekends.
Yeah. And stay tuned. Be safe and stay spooky. And we'll see you later.
Bye-bye.